Thanks for tuning in to Operation Revenge. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin the story. They said I died out there, not in a poetic, brave hero kind of way, just dead, swallowed by the sea and the lies that came after. But I wasn't dead. I just stopped letting them use my name. My name is Elena Drayton. I'm 36 years old. Right now, I'm standing in the courtyard of Ridgewater Emergency Response Academy, surrounded by recruits half my age, wearing a name tag that says Ellie Dawes, Bureau Liaison, a title no one questions because it sounds too boring to investigate. I watch as they laugh, shove, compare notes on who's already failed a drill. They don't know who I am. Good, that's the point. Let's go, worms. The voice is sharp and commanding. Commander Ronald Drayton, my father. I haven't seen him in 13 years, but nothing in his voice has changed. Still crisp, still smug, still convinced he's the axis the world turns on. He paces the line of recruits, stops near me, looks right at me. I don't blink. This one, he says, gesturing to me, already looks like dead weight. Probably just here to push papers and drink government coffee. Look at that posture. No spine. A couple recruits laugh. One snorts loud enough to echo. He leans in close enough that I can smell the coffee on his breath. Unfit, like always. I stare straight ahead. Don't worry, he mutters. You won't last a week. I say nothing. Not because I'm afraid, but because I didn't come here for revenge. I came for evidence, and revenge is just a bonus. The drills begin after lunch. A simulated flood zone rescue. Sandbags. Smoke. Controlled chaos. Everyone flails. I wait, then I move. In less than 3 minutes, I've set up triage, secured the casualty dummies, rerouted traffic flow, and shut down the malfunctioning pump the instructors planted as a trap. I don't bark orders, I just act. And suddenly, everyone is copying me. Somebody shouts, "Who taught you that?" No one answers, but as I climb onto the temporary levee wall to secure the last strap, my shirt hikes up just enough for my back to be exposed. And that's when it happens. A gasp, then silence, then whispers. All eyes on the tattoo stretched across my shoulder blade. A broken compass and 3 initials, OLR, overlapping a lightning bolt. The mark of Operation Last Reach, the emblem of the rescue unit they erased from the books. My old team. I drop down, pretend not to notice the stares, but my father sees it. I watch his face tighten, eyes narrow like he's just seen a ghost, because he has. Except this ghost came back with a pulse and a plan. The courtyard was still buzzing from the drill. Recruits whispered behind their hands. A few kept stealing glances at me. Others just looked confused. No one spoke to me directly until Commander Reese stepped out. He was older now, gray at the temples, deeper lines around his mouth. But his posture hadn't changed. Neither had the steel in his eyes. He walked toward the crowd, boots hitting the pavement with sharp precision. Then he stopped, right in front of me. At first, I thought he might pretend not to know me. That's what most of them did when Operation Last Reach was buried and forgotten. But not Reese. He looked at the tattoo on my back, what little had been exposed during the drill, and nodded, slow and deliberate. Then, without a word, he raised his hand in a formal salute. My breath caught in my throat. The courtyard went dead quiet. One by one, the other officers followed. Recruits hesitated, unsure what to do, until Reese barked, "You see that mark? You salute it. That emblem belongs to the only rescue unit that made it through Blackwater alive." That name, Blackwater, hit the air like a punch. Most of these kids probably thought it was a myth, a story told in instructor lounges and campfire rumors, a mission that went bad, followed by a convenient lack of records. But Reese remembered. He was there. My father stepped out of the admin wing just in time to see 100 hands snap to foreheads in my direction. For a moment, he didn't speak. His jaw worked like he was chewing glass. Then his voice came low and clipped. "Dismissed." The recruits scattered like marbles, some still sneaking glances at me, at the mark, at him. Later that night, I sat alone in the observation room, staring out over the flood simulation yard. Reese came in and shut the door behind him. "I knew you weren't dead," he said simply. "They made sure everyone else thought I was," I replied. He nodded. "Ronald was part of it, wasn't he?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. We both knew what happened during Blackwater, how an elite unit was sent in blind, how our gear failed, how half the team died before we even hit the waterline, and how the official report blamed us for the collapse, conveniently omitting the sabotage. I leaned back. They erased us, buried our names. But not that mark, Reese said, nodding at my shoulder, and not what you're here to do. I looked at him. I'm not here for salutes. I know, he said. You're here to tear it all down. And I was, because the same training model that fed us into black water now wore a shiny new badge and called itself Tier 4 conditioning. I saw the signs already. Emotional degradation disguised as resilience. Manufactured failure labeled as mental prep. They think I came back from the dead for glory, but I came for justice. They gave me a clipboard, a badge, and a title that sounded important enough to keep people from asking questions. Policy Liaison for Civil Oversight. It was perfect, just enough clearance to slip into training rooms, sit in on briefings, and watch everything unfold without anyone realizing what I was really doing. The Tier 4 resilience drills were the first red flag. On paper, they sounded like a high-intensity psychological test designed to build grit. In reality, they were just cruelty dressed up in science. The first drill I observed involved a recruit forced to crawl, blindfolded through ice water while recordings of screaming victims played overhead. When he broke down halfway through, the instructors didn't stop him. They stood back and took notes. One of them smirked. Failure to process stress is a liability, he muttered. Another drill had a girl confined to a pitch-black chamber for 12 hours with nothing but radiostatic and intermittent shocks through her gloves. She came out shaking and silent, staring at nothing. This wasn't training, it was psychological warfare, and it looked familiar. Back then, back when I still wore the last reach patch, this is how they broke us in secret. Tier 4 wasn't new. It was a repackaged version of the same rogue tactics that led to Blackwater. Reese found me in the archive room late one night. He didn't speak, just handed me a flash drive. Restricted footage, he said, then added, I had to pull favors. I watched it in my quarters that night, recruits collapsing from dehydration, instructors yelling until voices cracked. No medics, no relief, just cameras. I recognized the language, the forced helplessness, the stripping away of identity to build obedience. The exact same methods used on my unit before we were deployed into Blackwater, methods that led to 6 dead and a cover-up signed by people who still walk these halls. I thought of Ramos, my mentor, the one who refused to abandon me in that submerged compound. He gave me his air tank. He died so I could live, and they buried him in silence like he never existed. No plaque, no service, just a redacted line in a report. I pulled out a notebook, started writing, time codes, names, locations. Everything I saw, everything I heard. I made a habit of walking the corridors after hours, listening through vents, photographing the rosters left behind on instructors' desks. Recruits were being funneled into obedience, not resilience. Punishment disguised as discipline, and no one outside these walls had a clue. But I did, and this time, I wouldn't be the one buried. I'd be the one digging. They reassigned me to Bravo Squad by the end of the week. It wasn't subtle. Everyone at the academy knew Bravo was where they dumped the ones they didn't want to succeed. The injured, the insubordinate, the problems. Our gear was outdated, our drills were double-loaded, and our instructors barely showed up. The message was clear. Disappear quietly. Fisher made sure to spell it out anyway. Hey, mystery woman, he called across the barracks on my first day, loud enough for everyone to hear. Try not to die out there. We're short a stretcher, and we don't carry dead weight. Laughter followed. Mostly nervous, he had that easy arrogance some guys wear like a badge. I didn't look at him, just laced my boots and kept going. First drill, live search simulation in a collapsed tunnel setup. Our radios were rigged, delayed signals, distorted audio. One guy's flashlight battery had been swapped. Mine was missing entirely. I let us out blind anyway, by heat and voice. Second drill, marksmanship. Each recruit got 2 shots. The rest got fair equipment. My rifle's scope was loose. I adjusted it without a word, inhaled, and fired. Bullseye, twice. Fisher stared at me like I'd grown horns. He stepped up next and missed both shots by inches. When the instructor called my name and logged my score, Fisher muttered, "She got lucky." Or maybe she knows what she's doing, someone said under their breath. The sabotage didn't stop. Paperwork vanished. My locker was jammed with wet gear. We were assigned a timed rappelling course with ropes too short for the distance. But I tied an old paracord extension from memory and got the whole squad down. By week's end, no one said it out loud, but Bravo Squad stopped looking at me like a joke. Even Fisher. He was still watching, though. Quiet now. observing the way I moved, the way I stayed calm, even when the wind machines failed and smoke filled the rig hall. He wasn't mocking anymore. Late one night, I found a file slipped under my door. No name, just a single page, a training note from 6 years ago. Subject, Unit Falco, surveillance transfer pending. Falco. That name hadn't been spoken since before Blackwater. A shadow unit buried even deeper than mine. Whispers tied to illegal intelligence work and sanctioned disappearances. Now it was here. I stared at the page, heart thudding. Someone was pulling strings again. Someone who had unfinished business with my past, and they didn't know I was still alive to drag it into the light. It started with Megan. She was sharp. Top scores in evac simulations, quick under pressure, a natural team lead. The kind of recruit who should have been fast-tracked. Instead, she got failed. Quietly, no reason given, she showed up to morning drills pale and hollow-eyed, whispering to herself. I saw her flinch when Instructor Carver passed by. Later that afternoon, I found her alone behind the equipment shed, gripping a folded piece of paper like it was the only thing keeping her upright. When I stepped closer, she tried to hide it. I didn't speak. I just held out my hand. She hesitated, then passed it over. It was a report. She'd filed a complaint, detailed, well-documented, about Carver threatening to blacklist recruits who spoke up about faulty safety lines during tower drills. The next day, her pass rating disappeared from the system. "They're erasing me," she said softly. I took the paper, pulled a pen from my sleeve, and wrote 3 words on the back. "Keep the truth." Then I folded it and pressed it back into her hand. "You're not crazy," I said, "and you're not alone." She blinked hard but nodded. Fisher saw the exchange. He didn't ask questions, just kept watching from across the field. That evening, he caught up to me while I was rinsing off gear. "Was it Carver?" he asked. I didn't answer. He exhaled. "They did it to my roommate too," he said. "Passed everything." Then boom, he's out for disciplinary imbalance, whatever that means. I raised an eyebrow. "Why are you telling me?" He gave me a long look. "Because I think you already know exactly what this place is." I didn't deny it. He added, quieter this time, "You're not like the others. I used to think you were just weird. Now I think maybe you're the only one not sleepwalking." That was the moment it shifted, from suspicion to understanding, from isolation to something else. Solidarity. Recruits began to gravitate toward the shadows where I stood. No speeches, no slogans, just the quiet passing of files, glances, broken trust. Megan started recording her drills. Fisher started logging gear discrepancies. One by one, the ones who had nothing to lose stopped looking down and started looking around. They didn't know my name. Not yet. But they were starting to understand why I was really here. Not to fix the system from within. To expose it and burn it down. Fisher found me in the mess hall after lights out. A folded folder pressed flat against his side like it might burn through his uniform. "I wasn't supposed to see this," he said. "But I did." He set the file in front of me and walked away without another word. I opened it slowly. The first page stopped me cold. Incident report. Operation Blackwater. Amended final copy. Date stamped, signed by 2 senior officers. One of them was my father. The second page, more damning. A redacted casualty list. My name blacked out. Beneath it, a note. Declared MIA for morale purposes. Recommend no further inquiry. The next few pages told the truth. My unit had been ordered in with faulty intel. Backup never came. Command delayed extraction until after the window closed. My father had signed off on the deployment. And the erasure. There it was. The lie that buried us. I closed the folder, pressed my fingers to the worn cardboard, and let the silence settle. The next morning, I placed it on his desk. His office was empty when I entered, save for the buzz of the wall monitor and the faint scent of black coffee. I left the folder in the center of his desk. On top, I placed a yellow sticky note. "Will you sign this one too?" No signature, no threat, just a question. By afternoon, the academy moved strangely around me. Instructors paused mid-sentence when I walked by. Recruits glanced at each other with tight brows. Reese stopped me outside the water sim bay, hands in his jacket. "He saw it?" he asked. I nodded once. Reese let out a breath. "He's rattled." "Good," I said. "He should be." "He's not the kind of man who lets go of power easily," Reese warned. "He'll stall, deflect, maybe bury it all again." "Let him try." Reese studied me, his voice softer now. "You've got the proof. What comes next?" I didn't answer right away. Then, "We take away his shield. and we show the rest what he tried to hide. The battle wasn't loud yet, but it had begun, and this time I wasn't the one being erased. This time, the truth had my name written all over it. Graduation morning was all ceremony and polish. Dress uniforms pressed to perfection. Flags raised, recruits lined up in tight rows across the courtyard, faces locked forward beneath a cloudless sky. Commander Drayton stood on the stage with a clipboard in hand, flanked by senior officers like sentinels. I was placed in the second row, anonymous on paper but not in presence. Whispers had followed me all week. Looks lasted longer than they should. Some called me Ghost, others, Ma'am. No one said Elena Drayton, not yet. My father didn't acknowledge me, not even a glance. He stepped to the mic. Today we honor the next generation of responders, those who've survived this academy's most rigorous program. His voice never wavered, not once. He controlled the room like he always had, with tone, with command, with the comfort of silence where questions might otherwise grow, until Reese stepped forward. He held a red folder in one hand. Before we present final commendations, Reese said, loud enough to cut through the courtyard murmur, there's one more name to honor. My father turned sharply. Commander, this isn't... Reese ignored him. The Academy buried this name once, he said, but we do not bury heroes. Not anymore. He opened the folder. Lieutenant Commander Elena Drayton, call sign, Torch, lead strategist and field coordinator for Operation Last Reach, presumed KIA during the Blackwater mission, posthumous recognition denied, truth suppressed, gasps, then silence. One by one, heads turned toward me. Reese continued. The footage, the testimony, the reports, she survived, and she came back, not for revenge, but to stop the very system that betrayed her team. He turned to me, then he saluted. So did the officer beside him, then two more, then a whole line of them, and finally, recruits. Hesitant at first, then certain, raised their hands and followed, uniforms snapping to attention. I didn't move, I just stood there, letting the silence hold everything. My father didn't speak. His face was stone, but his hands trembled slightly, just enough for me to notice. His gaze passed over me like I wasn't real. But then, he did something I never expected. He saluted. It wasn't dramatic. No grand gesture, just a slow, deliberate motion. Arm raised, fingers pressed to brow. The quietest form of surrender. Then he turned and walked off the stage without a word. Reese stepped forward again. Effective immediately, Lieutenant Commander Drayton is reinstated and granted full authority to oversee the internal restructuring of this academy. The courtyard erupted into applause, some confused, some defiant, but many genuine. I stepped onto the platform, my boots echoing on the wood, and looked out at the crowd. I didn't need a speech. The truth had already spoken, and for the first time since I walked back through those gates, I wasn't hiding anymore. I was taking it back. All of it. The podium felt different now. Not like a place of ceremony, but like a lever I was finally allowed to pull. The day after graduation, I stood before the same courtyard, now filled not with polished silence, but restless anticipation. No speeches from commanders, no posturing, just me. Elena Drayton, no aliases, no more hiding. I looked out at the faces. Fisher, Megan, others from Bravo Squad, still wearing the uniforms that had tried to break them. This academy, I began, was built to produce strength, but it forgot what real strength looks like. Behind me, the banner bearing the academy's crest flapped against the wall. Tier 4 programs were still listed in the handbooks. Not for long. Effective immediately, I said clearly. Tier 4 resilience training is dissolved, permanently. Any program that uses humiliation or fear to train leaders will be dismantled, audited, and replaced. The crowd murmured, but no one spoke against me. Megan Caldwell, I called out, scanning the group until she stepped forward, stunned. Your record has been reinstated. All disciplinary actions overturned. She covered her mouth, blinking back tears. A couple recruits clapped. Reese stood in the back, arms crossed, nodding once. I turned toward Fisher. Cole Fisher, you're being reassigned. First Wave Rescue, Delta Division. Congratulations. His mouth opened slightly, then he gave a short, sharp salute. These weren't just handouts. They were corrections. Restorations. I didn't mention my father by name. I didn't have to. He'd left that morning. Quietly. No speeches, no protest. Just a resignation letter on Reese's desk and a photograph. It was old, creased from years in a drawer. It showed him younger, beside Captain Ramos, my mentor, the man who died so I could live. They were smiling. Just two men who still believed they were on the right side of something. Taped to the back was a note, written in pen. You were right. He was better than both of us. I folded the photo and kept it, not out of sentiment, but as evidence that even men who bury truth still bleed with it when no one's watching. When the ceremony ended, I didn't stay for congratulations. I walked the length of the courtyard, boots steady on the pavement, past the training halls that once broke recruits and the offices that once forged lies. I didn't look back. I wasn't here to rebuild a broken system. I was here to make sure it never got rebuilt at all. 6 months later, the ocean air still smelled like salt and rust. The old warehouse sat on the edge of the coast, tucked between a retired fireboat station and the broken hull of a decommissioned ferry. The windows were cracked, the roof leaked when it rained, and the floor creaked like it remembered better days. It was perfect. We called it Anchor Point. No ranks, no mottos, just a wide floor, reinforced ropes, real gear, and room to fail safely. That was the point. Resilience without cruelty, structure without fear. I ran drills in old sneakers. I coached from the floor, not from a podium. We rotated roles. I didn't care about someone's past or their record. All I asked was that they showed up ready to learn, ready to work, and willing to unlearn the lies the system had beaten into them. Most of them came broken. A girl who'd been dismissed from Tier 4 for emotional instability turned out to be the best tactical mind I'd seen since Ramos. A young man labeled insubordinate was just tired of being talked over. I gave them space. They filled it with effort. Megan arrived on a rainy morning, duffel bag slung over her shoulder, uniform shed. She didn't say much, just looked around the training bay, then nodded like she'd finally found where she was meant to land. I'll help train, she said, if that's something you're open to. It's more than welcome, I told her. It's yours too. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name, handwritten. Inside was a single sheet, folded tight. Torch. You changed everything, not with rank, not with reputation, but by standing when the system told you to stay down. Thank you for that. I'm going to make sure your story's taught in every squad I touch from here on out. No more silence. Fisher PSI kept the gear you fixed during Bravo's third drill. I show it to every recruit now. This still worked. So did she. I read it twice, then tucked it between the pages of an old journal I hadn't opened in years. That same afternoon, Reese sent a courier, a sealed envelope. Inside were the official closure documents for Operation Last Reach, signed, archived, finalized. On the bottom, a note in his handwriting. You became a leader by surviving. You became a legend by refusing to disappear. I sat alone in my office that night, the ocean wind slipping through the cracked window. Opened the journal, wrote my final entry. This is for the ones they tried to erase, the ones who kept showing up anyway. We weren't ghosts, we were fire, and we are still burning. I closed the book and got back to work.